Hi, GERO 508. We're back, and now we're going to talk about exercise. And let me go back to Module 10, just so you can see what we're doing in Module 10. And we only have 2 more modules after this, so we're getting there, right? So anyway, we're going to have our quiz, we're going to have our readings, our discussion. We're going to talk about what are the brain and health changes that have been documented for yoga, and I'll go over that in the PowerPoint. What was the most important message to you from the Paul Thompson YouTube video? He's now at USC. The video was recorded a few years back when he was at UCLA. And what do you think the obstacles are for people to engage in exercise? What recommendations, what would you do to encourage an older person who's trying to start an exercise program or improve their exercise program? You know, how would you educate them? How would you cheerlead them and motivate them to do this? So let's go here. Okay. So exercise, to me, most important thing you can do, really. Everything else you can get by. In a perfect world, we do all of these interventions. Every day we would listen to music. Every day we would do exercise. Every day we'd have some social connection. We'll do meditation. We'll practice gratitude. But if you can only pick one, pick exercise, because that's the thing that's going to have the most powerful effect on your brain and your body. And I'm going to have a little cough for the whole time, so just bear with me. I'm not sick. I just have a dry throat issue. So John, the photo on the top is Kelly Slater, famous surfer. John says to me a lot, surfing is my meditation. He says when he goes down to surf, he's completely focused in the moment, and you know, you're surrounded by nature, so it's great. You're looking at the birds and the fish and the dolphins, and he's talking to the other surfers, and he's watching, focused, laser beam focused on the waves as they're coming in, trying to decide, is this my wave? When do I go? And so for that two-hour period, sometimes longer if the waves are good, that's all he thinks about. He is completely 100% focused in the moment, and he's not thinking about GERO 508. He's not thinking about what are we going to have for dinner tonight. He's not thinking about did I give the dog, you know, the flea medicine. He's not thinking about anything else, and that is an enormous benefit. So if you can find exercise that works for you, it has to be something you enjoy. For most people, some people are very disciplined, and they will have an exercise program that they absolutely hate, and they'll do it every day of their lives. But for the average person, find something you love, find something that speaks to you, and do it hopefully every day, but as often as you can. And my exercise is I walk my dogs every morning. And so the photo on the bottom is one of the trails close to our house. So it's very necessary. The dogs start to get agitated about, I don't know, 8 o'clock if they haven't been taken for a walk. And, you know, in the summer when it's hotter, we try to take them earlier. And we walk them anywhere 3 to 5 miles, and it's every single day. So my dogs are a really good accountability partner. So I do recommend having a human or animal accountability partner that helps you stay on track and exercise daily. Someone that, or, you know, and I shouldn't underestimate the power of the technology that we have today. So I have a Fitbit that I wear. It tracks my steps. I don't, you know, pay a ridiculous amount of attention to it. But when I go to the grocery store, if I have a choice of 2 parking places and one's farther away from the door and one's closer, I'll choose the one that's farther away, because I'm like, hey, I'll get a few more steps. It's a good trigger for me to kind of keep on track and say, hey, I didn't exercise very much yesterday, or I exercised maybe a little less than usual. Maybe today I need to go a little longer, do a little more. And so for a lot of people, that sort of technology trigger can be very helpful. And I get, you know, a push notification on my phone when I've achieved my goal for the day. So that's positive reinforcement. So anyway, find something you like, try to make it into a habit, try to do it routinely. Now, why do we care about exercise? Um, it's hard to be stressed when you're exercising. There's these really fundamental basic things. When you get stressed, you tend to breathe less. You might breathe shallow. When you're exercising, you're taking deep breaths, you're oxygenating your blood. You're moving, the blood's moving through your body, your muscles are moving, it's just really, really healthy. You get endorphins released. So you're going to have endorphins, you're going to have dopamine, serotonin, all released when you exercise. I used to run, my knees have kind of been bad, so I don't run anymore, although I still hope to get back into it someday. And it wasn't that I loved running. I loved the way I felt when I stopped running. So you'd get this endorphin release and you'd feel really good for the rest of the day, really good, really clean. Um, Exercise can help with concentration. So it can help you focus like John does. He's focused on surfing. He's focused on not hurting himself on a wave that's big. And he's not thinking about any of the million and one other complicating things that we have in our lives. Exercise helps you sleep better. You probably don't want to exercise too close to bedtime, but exercising earlier in the day in the morning is good. You get it out of the way, and then you know you've gotten your exercise time in. Can really, really help get a good night's sleep. When John's had a really good surfing and he struggles with insomnia, he sleeps like a baby puppy. So very, very good thing. And again, it's a form of meditation. If you have ever been a runner or a weightlifter or yoga person or a dog walker, when I'm walking the dogs, often John and I are chatting, but sometimes I'm just kind of looking around and breathing, breathing in the smells, because we walk through this canyon, looking at the birds, listening to the wind. It's very meditative for me. So it can be a very, very positive stress relieving thing. Okay, so a little science. How does exercise affect the HPA axis? It decreases the HPA axis response to stress. It reduces your corticotropin releasing hormone, your CRH. In depressed patients, it can reverse some of the changes that have occurred in their brains. So reducing glucocorticoids, reducing feedback inhibition by glucocorticoids. And so this graphic from this article gives you, just examples of good things that can happen. Serotonin releases. Remember, serotonin and dopamine are feel-good chemicals. This is a graphic from exercise in the brain. One of the most important take-home messages you can take from this module is the fact that when you exercise, you get an increase in a growth factor called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. So you exercise and you get new brain cells, you get better memory, you get better connections in your brain. You get a larger hippocampus, which then leads to better memory. So you improve blood flow to your brain. You increase levels of this BDNF growth factor. And so this is all going to improve your brain health. As you get older, it's a normal part of aging that you have a little bit of shrinkage in the hippocampus. So when my dad was older, he was doing pretty well until close to the end, and he would get PET scans or CT scans because he was a cancer patient. And I could see on the scan, there's been some shrinkage, and that was normal. He was in his 80s. That was to be expected. Had he exercised more, he was active in some ways, but never I'm going to go walk or anything like that. He was purposeful exercise. That can avoid some of that shrinkage of your brain. So you want to improve your blood flow, decrease the shrinkage, decrease inflammation. We'll talk about microglia, who are kind of like the garbage men of the brain, and they go out and try to reduce inflammation and pick up the trash. Okay, so BD and F. again, what's probably the most important thing you can learn from this week, it helps your brain improve what we call plasticity. So it helps your brain adapt and grow. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can increase your levels of BDNF. We all want BDNF to be increased so that we have those connections building and new cells and things like that happening in our brain. Exercise, good sleep, good nutrition, and decreased stress are all going to help you have higher BDNF levels. Okay, so let's talk about microglia. So in a healthy person, you have these microglial cells that do all the functions in this screenshot on the left. So they're going to be little garbage collectors. They're going to go around and they're going to check out the cellular environment. They're going to prune some synapses. They're going to pick up debris and try to remove the garbage in the trash. They're going to get rid of damaged neurons. They're going to release cytokines and also be active in growth factors and things like that. Now, when you have Alzheimer's or dementia, you may have these healthy microglial cells turn kind of senescent or inactive. And so we see that they're not doing all those jobs. They're not going around and cleaning and pruning and making everything nice in your brain. And so the graphic on the right shows the difference between the healthy brain that's having positive effects from exercise and the Alzheimer's brain that might have amyloid plaques and things like that. Okay, so this is one of the articles about how exercise affects your brain, comparing yoga to other types of exercise. And I felt like the table was pretty powerful. So they go through a number of different outcomes. And this is what we call, it's a review article, kind of a meta-analysis, where they look at the data from a lot of different other studies and then summarize everything, okay? So they compare yoga to exercise, the last three columns. The first of the last three columns is less beneficial. Yoga is less beneficial than exercise. The middle column is similar or equal to, so it's still pretty good. The right column is more beneficial. If you look at that right column, you're seeing a lot of X's. So you're seeing that yoga is more beneficial than exercise in all of these studies. So more beneficial for balance, more beneficial for reducing fatigue, more beneficial for flexibility. That's no surprise at all. More beneficial for, let's see, quality of life, more beneficial for dealing with sleep disturbances, social and occupational functioning, strength, stress, things like that. So we're seeing really powerful effects across a lot of different studies over a period of time, comparing yoga to exercise. Okay, and then this is a really good graphic, and I've put red boxes around everything that had an asterisk, meaning that yoga has been shown to have a significant beneficial impact on this item. So beneficial impact on cortisol, so that's decreasing your cortisol. Beneficial impact on insulin, so decreasing your insulin. Beneficial impact on your blood glucose. Beneficial impact on your blood pressure, so reducing your blood pressure. Beneficial impact on your heart rate and your release of norepinephrine and epinephrine. So very powerful both with the HPA axis and the sympathetic nervous system. Okay, so how does exercise affect your brain? I already mentioned you get more oxygen. When you exercise, you breathe. You're bringing oxygen in, and because your heart's beating faster, that oxygen is being sent all throughout your brain. You're helping stimulate the production of new brain cells. We used to think that you were born with whatever brain cells you were going to have. That's not really the case, and especially with these microglial cells, we want to make sure that we have a pretty good team of microglial cells around. When we looked at people who had high cortisol levels on brain scans, they were having brain shrinkage or tissue loss faster than people with lower cortisol levels. So because exercise reduces stress, which reduces cortisol levels, exercise will slow your brain shrinkage. And we all want to keep our brains big and fat and healthy. Okay, so let's talk yoga and your brain. Just like music, yoga lights up a lot of different parts of the brain. So think about if you've ever been to a yoga class, you really have to do a lot of things at once. You're watching the instructor, so your visual cortex is activated. You're listening because your instructor is probably giving you directions. You may also be having music playing in the background, so you're listening to that too. You're thinking, so your brain, your executive function areas are lighting up, your temporal lobe is lighting up, you're trying to remember if you're going to do downward facing dog, you're like, okay, what am I doing now? What's the next step? How long do I hold this pose? What did I do in the class last time? You're going to be taking cues from your instructor. You're going to be working on your balance, which is a really big deal and really good for older adults to work on their balance during the yoga class. And a lot of yoga classes focus on your breath and making sure that you're breathing the right way. If you need to inhale on a certain move, if you need to exhale on a certain move. And so you're going to be focusing on just fundamental things like breathing. And then you're going to be doing a lot of memory work. As you get more familiar with the yoga routine, if you're going to the same class, doing the same routine, you're going to be able to move from one pose to another pose to another pose, kind of using your muscle memory and not really thinking about it. But so all of your brain has been lighting up, doing all of these things. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit because, again, with really high level athletes, we're seeing athletes in the NBA and the NFL are using yoga to reduce stress, to improve flexibility, and finding it a really powerful tool. So LeBron James was basically helping lead a yoga class with some of the rookies, I think, in pro basketball. And this guy, Kent Katich, I don't really know how to say his name. He has been affiliated with the Clippers, I mean. So now we have pro teams that are hiring yoga instructors to get everybody on board. And of course, if you're working on your flexibility and your stretching and your blood flow and your breathing, you're probably going to cut down on injuries, which is why they're highly motivated to get everyone doing yoga. Okay. In terms of resources, you don't have to. I know that, in a perfect world, you go to a yoga studio and you pay per class, and it probably costs a varying amount of money depending on how exclusive the studio you go to is. However, you can get yoga for free online during the pandemic when we were all locked in our houses. You basically need, it's nice to have a yoga mat. You don't have to have a yoga mat. But this Yoga with Adriene channel on YouTube, she's very well known. She wanted to kind of bring yoga to the masses. She has something like 12 million followers, 13 million followers, and you can go to her YouTube channel and it's free, or go to her website and get information. USC started a yoga channel. They have an Instagram page. And so they've got, if you want to get access to anything that USC is doing with yoga right now, you can go to that yoga channel. And they started during the pandemic doing online Zoom yoga classes as well. And they had various events with different yoga people that come to campus. And so you can follow them on Instagram and get more information. Okay. So I added this at the end. So we all know exercise is good for us. It's not a surprise to any of us. The key is motivation. And I want to take a moment to just say, as a cancer patient, one of the things that I deal with, both from my treatment and from my underlying condition, is fatigue. And one of the things that I learned along the way is when you are very, very tired, you need to exercise, but it's really darn hard to lift your head off the pillow. However, a little bit of exercise goes a long way towards relieving fatigue. And I just saw an article that came out yesterday that made recommendations on dealing with fatigue in cancer patients. And the one thing that everyone agreed on was exercise was the best solution, with the most research behind it to verify. A lot of other things were considered and didn't really work, both for people in treatment and out of treatment. So for older adults who may be struggling with chronic conditions or just not feeling well, or maybe really out of shape or fatigued, we've got to find some creative ways to encourage them to increase exercise. And I included a screenshot of basically it's an exercise prescription. So the doctor, and the cool thing about this is it says, hey, these are your guidelines. This is what you should be getting. You should be getting, 150 minutes to 300 minutes a week of moderate intensity activity, medium to fast walking, or 75 minutes a week of vigorous activity like, playing basketball or pickleball or running or whatever, and doing strength training as well. And so your doctor or a healthcare practitioner can use this to say, hey, I'm prescribing to you exercise. Exercise is medicine. And then educating people about the benefit of it. Do you want your brain to shrink, or do you want your brain to stay nice and plump and functional? Most people, as they're getting older, really, really dread the concept of losing cognitive function. And let's say you already have something like Parkinson's. Exercise is a very powerful tool to slow the progression of Parkinson's and improve the outcome for patients with Parkinson's. So with a lot of these chronic diseases, the best thing we can do for someone who is older, who may not be in the habit of exercising, is help them find a way to improve their exercise. So walking with family members, going to the mall and walking. So sometimes older people might say, I'm really not comfortable walking on the trails around my house. What if I fall and there's nobody around? Go to the mall. It's air conditioned. There's people around. If something happens to you, help will be there in a second, if you can get there. I put in this picture of people doing Tai Chi because I think one of the things that we lack in the US is the ready availability of exercise for older people. And if you go to a town square in China, there may be a Tai Chi group with a lot of retired people that have gone out and they do it a couple times a week, and it's really good exercise, great for balance, great for stress relief. And so we need to create, as communities, we need to create these opportunities. We need to make sure we have space, open spaces, outdoor spaces for people to exercise. We need to make sure we have infrastructure for people, transportation options for people, and things that are easy that can be done every day. In my dream, Medicare in the US, we pay for home health and we pay for home PT and all these things. I wish that Medicare would pay for someone to go to an older person's house and just take them by the hand and walk them around the block 3 times a week. And it would be sociality and it would be exercise. And we would see enormous benefits from it. So that's all I've got to say. If you want more information about this exercise as medicine program and our public health strategy on that, the CDC, I've given you a link. The CDC has a great program to improve and increase the amount of exercise that people are getting across the lifespan, not just older adults. All righty. Well, thank you, and we'll see you next week.